The automobile industry is highly technical with technology and innovation at the forefront. The irony is that a lot of the auto mechanics relied upon to fix these cars are not upgrading their skills, as many of them often attempt to guess what a problem is instead of diagnosing the car first. Cars45.com is a startup seeking to sanitize the used car industry, and Etop Ikpe joins us to share his thoughts.
So looking at the automobile industry today, how does technology play a very important role?
I think technology plays an important role in everything. I mean, the fundamental of technology is basically improvement, right? And, you know, so maybe in a way, people just see technology as being digital, but everything from how, you know, transmissions improve, to fuel efficiency, to understanding the nature of the car, to, you know, narrowing down. I mean, I think in some cases, if you look at the way cars even understand the issues that they have themselves, you know, they've realized that who is better to understand the problem they have? Is it better for a car to be able to tell you, this is exactly what is wrong with me? And I'll tell you something, there's a new car that came out recently, and this car, you're not allowed to actually open the engine anymore to gauge the engine up. That's how much they believe in the technology. They say, you shouldn't know, you're not going to be able to know how much, let the car actually tell you when it needs the engine oil to be changed. That's how much technology has changed in the auto industry, and will continue to change the auto industry overall.
I'm wondering, why did you decide to face the auto industry? I mean, you have e-commerce, fintech, agriculture, but why did you choose the auto industry?
So there are two things. When I was kind of figuring out, okay, you know, what next to do, you know. The first thing was, you know, my background, I've kind of seen when things started from nothing and really, really skilled. So, you know, I was particularly interested in doing something that, you know, really had...
But not e-commerce?
I mean, technically, e-commerce is commerce electronically, right? So it's kind of what we're still doing anyway. But also, that's one thing. Two was behavioral change. So I like the fact that I've looked back on industries where, you know, I was lucky and, you know, I was fortunate to be part of the development of those industries. And I look back and you know, there's some nice stories you can tell around how people didn't believe in you. I mean, sometimes I tell people things that, you know, when I first started e-commerce, I couldn't tell people the truth about what I was doing. I used to lie. And people would say, what are you doing? I would lie. I'll say, I have a store. You know, a physical store. I didn't have a physical store because I was tired of having to defend myself over. And I said, you know what, instead of having to defend yourself over and over again, why don't you just lie so they don't disturb you? And maybe later on when they see that. So I'm used to, you know, having not to discuss with your family what you're doing and things like that. And then looking back over time and seeing that, yes, we changed behavior. And so behavioral change was very important for me as well. And finally, I think over time I've come to realize that beyond, I think as an entrepreneur in Africa, there has to be a social angle to what you're doing. And what I mean by social angle is you realize that we have a lot of challenges in the country and Africa in general. And you know, we like to say the government should do this, the government should do that. And sometimes we don't do enough research to realize that people actually, it's the people who changed most of these economies that we admire. It wasn't the government, it was the people who even redefined their own governance structures. You know, when you look at the revolutions that happened in the mid-18th century in France and Europe, and how they changed their monarchies, and how the Europeans migrated to the US to go and set up new governments and democracy and things like that. It's the people that actually drive change. And so for me, I think one of the things that we have to start doing is recognizing the importance of your role as an entrepreneur. When you're doing something, there has to be a social angle where you're actually going to solve a real problem. That when you solve that real problem, it creates absolute massive value within your environment. Two, there has to be a thought around job provision. We can't just do things and think that, you know, it can't be about. I think once you can focus on things that can give that value, once you create value, money will come. So naturally, those things will come, and that's the reason why we focused on it.
You are certainly a pioneer. First Due Day, then Conga, and then now Cars45. What is driving you?
I mean, I think it's really about solving problems, taking on big challenges, you know, identifying opportunities where it seems like it's not, picking up things that, you know, I mean, some people have the advantage of knowing, you know, maybe some powerful people. I've never had that. I've always realized that, look, if you wanted to make anything, you have to think. And I think the first place you start is looking at where you have kind of big problems and wanting to fix it. And for us, we saw the used car market as a place where, you know, it's the largest segment in terms of auto trade, but it's also the most opaque and most difficult for a lot of people. If you look at the average earning power of most Nigerians, this is actually where a lot more Nigerians can afford to buy cars. So it's not like a lot of people can, you know, very few people can afford to buy brand new, and then it's even the wealthy ones that can afford to buy Tokumba cars. But the people that are absolutely forgotten are those who actually deal in the Nigerian used. And that is actually the sector where there's, you know, absolute, you know, there's no transparency, there's no standardized pricing. And we figured that, well, if we could solve this problem for a lot of people, then we definitely can create a huge opportunity. And that's primarily why we focused on the sector.
So if I look at the whole auto industry, especially the used car and the Nigerian used segment, and the auto mechanics, I'm wondering, is there a future for them if nobody upgrades their skills? Exactly.
You know, what I mentioned to you earlier on about kind of picking up problems and having a social angle to what you do, it's exactly, there must be a demand, right? There must be a demand on them. And so the reason why their skills are currently not being upgraded is not because they don't want to, or because there's no need to, but it's because nobody has taken up that challenge. We've actually, and a few other people are doing it, but we particularly have, you know, worked on a few partnerships where we are actually, because we know that this is the future, this is where it is we're going. We see the data coming in, we see cars that come in every day, and we see what the problems are. Most of the issues, it's about poor maintenance and poor knowledge. So people don't know the basic things they need to do. And likewise, the mechanics also don't know the basic things they need to do.
They guess all this.
Exactly. And so if they're better trained and to get these things done, it means, you know, there has to be a structured system and a way to improve them. And that's kind of what we're, yes, there's currently as it stands, there's definitely no future for them. But I think with more people who have a stake in the industry, investing in their development, at the end of the day, you know, these guys are using, you see them and they come, they're using smartphones, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. So they can actually think, so what is the difference, you know, and a lot of it has to do, even their cultural values, what have they been trained, how have they been trained, you know, some of them are trained from day one to make little gains on the side, and it's really about reorientating them and developing them and showing them a future in doing things properly.
Finally, let's look at driverless cars. Do you think they're a threat to your startup?
So in Cars 45, I wouldn't, first of all, consider driverless cars a threat. As I also don't, I mean, because I think we're in completely different sectors, but I also don't really see that many threats, because I believe we're developing an ecosystem overall and providing value for everyone. I think everyone will benefit from Cars 45, you know, thriving and expanding and providing good service. I think what we're trying to do in the industry, pretty much, regardless of even people don't realize it now, I think everyone's business is going to be better by, you know, us building and developing our business. I think driverless cars, I think we are very far away from. I think we need to fix our roads, we need to fix our GPS, there are tons of things we need to do. But I would say, who says that, you know, the technology needed, right, to understand how driverless cars need to work in an African environment shouldn't come from here? And I think that there are even some areas where you see very direct routes. So who says that driverless cars can't work for school shuttles and things like that? But I mean, I think in terms of exporting technology, you know, and cracking it in a real context, I think maybe because people haven't put their thought to it. But I think as a threat to our business, not really. And like I said, not because I just think that if we do what we're supposed to do, it will make driverless technology even more available to people to use and make it more possible to exist in the country.
Thank you for being on Tech Trends today.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, awesome. Yeah.
We've come to the end of today's show. Do follow us on social media, and don't forget you can watch these and previous editions of the show on the channel's TV YouTube account or via my blog cfatech.ng. For Tech Trends, I am Chukwemeka Agbata.